Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm gonna have a get ready with me. We're gonna talk about a very heavy topic. This isn't even the topic I want to talk about. I want to talk about something else. However, yesterday I was watching something and it kind of triggered me a little bit, and I feel like this is a topic we need to talk about. I feel like I'm gonna talk about whatever my other topic. I'm not gonna say what it was. We're gonna do that in another video because I still want to talk about that, but this really want to talk about this. All right, so let's get into it. So toxic parents. I've had my fair share. I grew up with my mom, didn't grow up with my dad. He passed when I was really young, and then my adopted dad, he took over and raised me. He's fantastic, love him to death, and if I could give standing ovation award to parents, he would be at the top of my list for everything, you know. And so I very much love him for taking on that role when he didn't have to. That was a personal choice that he made, and I will forever be grateful to him for that. But my mother, and not to say that I don't love her, because I do. I appreciate her. I wish nothing but the best for her. I just feel like sometimes, you know how they say parents, well, children don't choose their parents. I generally believe that not all parents are meant to have kids. All kids deserve parents, not all parents deserve children. That is my belief, and I will die on that hill. Because for me, it was essentially a constant battle of wanting to be good enough for someone who didn't care about me. And I'm not gonna say that I wasn't privileged, because I very much am, and I will never not be grateful for the life that I have and for the life that I was given because of her. However, none of that erases the fact that majority of the things that I grew up with, the things that I grew up loving, were as a result of her emotional negligence. And that is something to talk about, because yes, you can look at a child and you're very privileged because this is the things that you were given, you know, and not everyone was given that, and you need to be more grateful for that. And kids are grateful. You know, I'm talking from my own perspective. I am very grateful for all the things that I was able to receive because of my parents. However, having material possessions and being very materialistically wealthy, you know, over materialistically privileged, does not take away from the fact that children need their parents. And you telling me that I need to be very happy because my mom decided to spend more time buying me gifts to compensate for the fact that she didn't want to be a part of my life isn't a good thing. And I think that's a conversation that people in general need to have in regards to how they look at children and how they talk to children. Because you telling me that you should be grateful for the fact that you grew up on this as a way to excuse the non-existent place my parents had in my life, it's not a good balance. I can tell you it's not a good balance. Children who are forced to grow up early, when you then look at them and be like, well, you're behaving a little bit too old for your age, you're behaving a little bit too passing your place, you're doing this, they have no choice. It wasn't as a result of wanting to be an adult. It was more so, I don't really have a choice. It's either I remain emotionally stunted, or I realize that the world isn't gonna walk over barefoot for me, because I know that my parents would never do it. So if my parents, the people who gave birth to me, are the first ones to give up on me, then why would I expect any less from anyone else in the world, right? If it is that you do not talk to your children in regards to, my first time trying this brush, I don't know if this was the right brush to use for this. Oh wait, never mind, I spoke too soon. But I feel like adults tend to have this ideology that parents, especially in the Caribbean, that parents should be revered. You know, they should be loved and they should be respected no matter the things that they do, no matter the things that they say. And trust me, I've lived through enough verbal abuse to understand that people on the outside who have no idea what goes on in your life are the first ones who step outside and ignore all the problems that you face once you bring it up to them. 100%. They are essentially the people who, once you tell them that this is what's actually going on, they are going to then turn around, one, feign ignorance, and two, explain to you that every single thing that is wrong in your life in regards to your parents is as a result of you. It's not as a result of your parents being emotionally manipulative, emotionally neglectful. It's a result of you being a terrible child, being difficult, being not what you were supposed to be, and forcing your parents to have to compensate by treating you terribly. It's the same exact conversation that you see people have when it comes to abortion versus non-abortion, right? And I am very religious. I am a Christian and I believe that all life was given by God. What I don't believe is that people who are not in your life and people who are the first ones to abandon you, that they have a say in how your life goes. I can promise you, they are not the ones who get to talk. And I had to slowly learn that for myself, because it was the only way for me to survive. If it was that I stood there waiting for the acceptance and the approval of everyone around me in regards to those adults who felt like they knew more about my life than I did, I would have probably been dead. Because when you turn around and you tell them that you need help, when you turn around and say, I'm struggling to do this and I'm struggling to do that, they're the first ones who turn their backs on you. Even though they tell you to stay there, stick up, put up with it because this person gave birth to you, they are the first ones who refuse to help you when you actually ask for it, right? And saying that your parents gave birth to you and therefore you owe them something, it's not true. You owe your parents nothing. And it's something that you, as a child, especially growing up in a country where such emphasis is placed on respect for not only your elders but your parents, especially your mother, especially, it takes a lot of unlearning to realize that you don't need to give her anything. Her job was to raise you, and raising you terribly or not raising you at all, you even more so do not need to repay her. It's not your job to fix your parents. And that is something that emotionally neglected, emotionally abused children need to learn. And then when your parents turn around and blame you for all the problems that they face, it's even worse, because you now have to go over and say, well, I'm being told that this is my fault, so it is my fault, because there's no other way for, if it wasn't my fault, then nobody would be telling me this. If it wasn't my fault, then maybe this wouldn't be, the reality that I'm living in. It's just so much to unpack, and I feel like until we have that conversation in the public space, it's just going to continue. It's a cycle that's going to continue, because there's no one on earth who cares about children. It's more so they care about themselves and how they're perceived. And I can promise you, the people who are turning around and telling you that, but it's your parents, it's your mother, you need to, it sucks, but she's done this and she's done that, they're the first ones who, if it is that you actually bring that evidence to them, it doesn't change anything. It doesn't. It's essentially going to make them even more in denial than they were before you showed them any. I am by no means a professional in the mental world. That is not my degree. That is not where I am focused on in life. However, I have been forced to understand these things for reasons beyond my control. And I've come to learn that when you force a child to essentially grow up early, you should be okay when they come to resent you for it. And I'm talking about parents in this aspect, not the kids. Because parents are the first ones to tell a child that they've passed their place, when parents are the reasons children tend to grow up earlier than they should. And they never seem to understand nor accept that responsibility. Parents are the first ones to find some way to blame you for their own actions against you. You know, if you didn't do this, or if you did this, then you wouldn't have been forced to, or you wouldn't have been in the position to have to learn how to do this, right? So next time is what they'll tell you, you should do this instead. And personally, I feel as though as a parent, your job is to educate a child. You are put on this earth to ensure that you create a person who functions in society. Your job is not to recreate your own life by doing over your mistakes. Your job isn't to heal your trauma with your child. Your job is to ensure that once that child steps into society as the person, they are, you know, fully functioning human beings. And when you create a child that is so emotionally stunted or so stuck in trauma that they do not have those capabilities, you should also be adult enough to take responsibility for it. Because being a parent is just like any other job. Granted, you don't get literal pay for it. However, your payment should be seeing your child in society as a human that makes other people's lives better, or does their best to make other people's lives better. When you fail to do that, when you, instead of raising that type of person, raise someone who is stuck in a therapist's office all day, trying to heal from the things that you've said and the things that you've done, one, you should be ashamed. And I'm not saying all parents are perfect, because being a parent is one of the hardest jobs in the world. I've seen how children test their parents and how children essentially make their parents feel worthless. And I'm not talking about those kind of parents. I'm talking about parents who know. And if you're a bad parent, you know, because I've seen the scenarios where the parent comes to that realization, and instead of acknowledging it and instead of saying, you know what, I need to change this, they turn around and find ways to shirk responsibility by saying that their own trauma led them to this point, and if they hadn't healed from their trauma, then, you know, this wouldn't have happened. Your job is to ensure that your trauma doesn't hit your child. You should not take what someone else has done to you out on your child. And yes, you can be a bad parent up until that point, but the moment in which you decide that your trauma is a very good reason to ensure that your child does not grow up the way they should, being in a loving, understanding environment, you're no longer a bad parent, you're a horrible person. Because that is essentially you not only hurting another person for your own gain, because that is essentially what it is. It's bullying your child to feel as though you've one-upped whatever it is in your life that has hurt you before. And no child should be the punching bag for their parent, no matter what. You should always ensure that your child is your biggest self. I want to say that area of your life where anything can be happening, but your child is where it's all better. Your child shouldn't feel the repercussions of the things that have happened to you as a result of other people. Because the moment that happens, you are now a horrible person, not a bad parent, a horrible person. Because no decent human being would look at an innocent child and say, you deserve to take all the pain that I have suffered because I don't want to. When I said earlier that you don't owe your parents anything, I was referring to people who look at kids and tell them that they do not have the right to cut their parents off because they're their parents. You know, the children who decide that they need to heal, and when their family members or their people who know their parents hear that they're planning on going no contact or low contact with their parents, they're like, but you can't do that, that's your parent, you know, they raised you, you do that and you're a terrible child, you're ungrateful for all the things that they've done to ensure, you know, you've gotten to where you are, or you succeeded the way you should, or anything. It really hits a point where you understand that your own feelings at one point in your life need to come before other people's opinions. Because if it is that you spend your entire life listening to those people, you're gonna jump off a cliff. It sucks because no one wants to be like, well, those people don't actually have your best interest at heart, because they don't. They only want to seem like better people by utilizing your trauma and your response to trauma as a way to uplift themselves. Because I can promise you, they cut off people just like you do. The only difference is they can justify it for themselves to say like, well, this person hurt me. And it's the same, no matter who gave birth to you, if that person hurts you, you should cut them off. It's just like saying, oh, well, you know, we have a family pedophile, but we still bring him around the kids because he's family. Or saying that it's okay if your father molests you, just keep quiet about it because nobody on the outside needs to know. They stand up for their own things, their own problems. And if someone were to bring it up, they can't handle that. So why should you listen to people who are probably helping the people who are harming others? And it's not a good look on you or on them, right? So you need to find a way to ensure your own happiness before listening to what anyone has to say, because I can promise you they don't care about you as much as they are pretending to. They care about how they look to you, because if it is that they were to say that, oh yeah, I really don't care what happens to you in those terms because I feel like my opinions matter more, then obviously they're gonna look like horrible people. So they have to twist it in a way that makes you seem like you're the villain. Because if you believe you're the villain, you stick around. You stick around and take more of the abuse that your parents have to dole out, and then, you know, their lives seem like, oh, my life is so much better because I'm not dealing with this, right? And so you really don't owe your parents anything. If you owe them anything, it's just a thanks for bringing you into the world. You don't owe them your time. You don't owe them your energy. You don't owe them anything that's gonna make your life any harder than it needs to be. Because if you were to ask them, and I remember asking my mother this question, what do you do when you're friends with someone or you know someone and they spend their entire lives, their entire time ensuring that your life is horrible? What do you do? Someone harms you, someone makes your life worse. What do you do? She's like, oh, well, you just cut them off. And I was like, exactly. It's okay to cut people off. Your familial relations actually does not matter, because these are not people who have your best interests at heart. And forcing yourself to have their best interests at heart is only harming you. It's not harming them. I can promise you it's not harming them. But the only time it harms them is when they realize that they no longer have that hold on you that they think they do, because you no longer be around for them to put their emotional frustration on. That's when you see it. And I've seen it happen, because the moment in which my mom realizes that, oh, I'm actually putting boundaries in place for a relationship, then every single thing that she's done for me gets cut off. Any form of emotional support gets cut off, because that's the only thing she has a hold of me now. I'm no longer in her house, so I'm no longer as subject to her form of neglect, because it doesn't matter to me anymore. I don't have to stay in that environment with her. However, financially, I'm still dependent on her because she pays my tuition, and that is something I need to be paid to succeed in life. So she cuts that off. She's like, well, since you no longer need me in your life, then there's nothing more I can do for you, and I'll cut this off. And trust me, I can promise you that if you try that on your parent, your emotionally abusive parent, give them about a week, if that much. Give them about a week, 2 weeks, and you'll see little things start to appear where they'll message you off the like, just randomly message you to be like, well, what are you doing? Or are you okay? Do you need this? Do you need that? Because the only way for them to continue this cycle of emotional manipulation is to keep you in their hold. And if they can't have you in their hold in whatever, level of authority that they do or they did before you decided to then they need to find something else. You'll see that they start to care a lot more about the little things in your life when it is that they no longer have that hold on whatever they did before. They're gonna find something else to kind of hold over you. And if it is that you do not give them the opportunity, then they will start to show their true colors a little bit more. And I mean, it's up to you what you want to do with that. At this point in time, we all need therapy. And so I want to talk about, I think this is going to sound sponsored. It's not. BetterHelp. It's actually not sponsored by them, but I do actually like them because they're so convenient. I used them for about a month before I moved to university, because at that point I had money to pay for it. If you are a student, you get student discounts, so it is a bit cheaper if you are a student and you want to talk to them. But you also have deals that they have going on all the time. And having them means having someone to talk to at all times. And I think it's a pretty good way for you to start your healing journey, even if you aren't sure about therapy, aren't sure about how therapy works. They offer different forms of therapy to kind of get you started, to kind of get you to see, where you want to go with your therapy sessions. And you can always choose to cancel, and it's fine. It doesn't really affect you. But I think if you start, you might actually like it, because it's a way for you to release all that pent-up frustration that you probably have, you know, from just everyone and everything around you just seeming to not go the way you need it to, not work when you need it to. And for me, it helps me kind of be a little more peaceful, come to terms a little bit more. That and my friends, my support system in person, they were really a big part in that healing process for me, because if I didn't have them, then I don't think that I would have been as okay with a lot of things that happened as I am. Like, I'm not sure you see on TikTok that Susie Pesto story. I have my own Susie Pesto story in this regard, and having my support system kind of helped deal with whatever was happening whenever those things happened in life, because sometimes you really have to sit there and listen to some of the things that I was told. I remember there was one incident where I told my friend, well, she was there at the time, like I was on conversation with my friends at the time, and so they saw the conversation in live, like as it was happening, and my friends were like, if I didn't see this, or like if I didn't hear this for myself, I would have thought you were lying. And a lot of the scenarios were very much like that, where it's like, honestly, it happened to me and I still can't believe it, because a lot of this just does not sound like things that would happen in real life. You see in Reddit stories where it's like, oh, you know, who can lie the most on Reddit? And I feel like my entire life up to this point has been one big Reddit lie. I'm still sometimes sitting waiting for my dream session to be over, and I'll just snap up and be like, okay, so none of that happened. And I haven't gotten there, which means that apparently all of this is happening. But you know, sometimes it's fun. Sometimes when you look back on it, it's like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe that these are actual conversations that I've had with someone else who is said to be of sound mind, because they don't seem real. And all the times I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I've been the reason for all this happening, because that happens sometimes, that victim mentality where it's like you seem like you're the one to blame and that person is, you know, they're right, because if it weren't for you, then a lot of these things wouldn't be happening, and if it weren't for you, then life would be so much more peaceful. So I've had both of those, and my support system and having therapy as an option has made my life a little bit more manageable than it would have been without that. And I feel like everyone needs that. Everyone needs a support system. Everyone needs therapy. So I don't know, I feel like now that we've gotten to this aspect, it's kind of, that's really where it ends, you know, understanding that it's not your fault. It's okay to leave. It is okay. It hurts. Trust me, it hurts, not only, especially if it's your parent, because there's this thing that people say, children are made to love their parents. No matter what you think, no matter what they do, there's an unconditional love that children will forever have for their parents. And as hurtful as their actions, their words may be, you'll always love them, because you were created to love that parent, right? But sometimes, and in these cases, it's okay to put love for yourself first, even if everyone around you is saying that it's not okay. It is okay. And as hurtful as it may be in that initial stage where you are like, I need to put this person who has been such a huge part of my life in a much smaller position in my life, and you're gonna have to come to terms with that, and you're gonna have to work on how to live moving forward with that. It does get easier, it does get better, And then having that support system, having that option of having someone to talk to, you know, a licensed professional even, it will make everything much better. So this is the final look. Now my hair's like flicked up. But this is the final look. I haven't waited for the lipstick to dry. It's a matte lipstick. First time trying it. It's new. And I haven't waited for it to dry. So you might see some transfer on my teeth while I'm talking because I didn't want to wait for it to dry. I tried to dry it, so there's like very little movement. But this is the final look. I feel very Christmas with the green and red, and I didn't realize that the moment I chose green I have to do red lipstick. So this is the end result. But it's been a fun little talk. I think I have expressed most of what I wanted to get across to everyone, and it was more so, I think, realizing no, because like I said at the beginning of the video, this wasn't what I wanted to plan, what I wanted to record. And it wasn't until I saw that video, the video that I did, that reminded me of where I was at that point in my life, where I was like, this needs to be, you know, discussed more amongst the community of just people, because there's certain things that parents and elders are allowed to get away with that, you know, when you look back, you're like, why is anyone allowed to get away with this when everyone deserves their own healing process, their own healing, you know, for themselves? And it's not okay for generational trauma to continue, and abusive parents are the continuers of a cycle of that form of generational trauma, because their trauma is usually from their own parents, and it just continues and continues and continues until it's at a point where that family is no longer willing to, someone in that family has to say no, you know, to stop whatever trauma is going on. And I'm really hoping that I am the person in mine. I am an only child for my mom, so it's a little bit easier, but I'm hoping that I am the, you know, I stop my own generational trauma from that family. And if I do have kids, I never want them to ever be in the positions that I was. I never want them to look at me as their parent and be like, I can't trust that I can bring anything to you. I can't trust that I can have a conversation with you, right? I never want that. I hope that whoever this video resonates with, they also get to that point where they're like, I want to be that end point for my family. I want to be the change, you know. This is where the video is going to end. I think I've rambled enough for today, and I'll see you in the next one. I hope you guys have a lovely day, and I hope that you have more sun than I do at this point. If you can see that it's very dreary in the video today, it's because not only do I have the ring light, but I also have the actual outside light coming in, and this is all that we have today. So yeah, but I do hope you guys end up having again, I need to wait for this to dry. I hope you guys have a really good day. I'm just gonna stop talking now so that there's no more transfer, and I will see you all in the next one. Mwah.